Alrighty, left, right, out. Another day, another series of news articles and whatnot and events going around the world. September 17th to Friday. We're looking at the financial stuff. We got the markets kind of down. I mean, you never know what this stuff is. I mean, it trades all over the place, and there's a nonsensical manner. But there's some good articles with regards. So we'll start off with this, and we'll get into some other topics. But the first one, if you didn't see, probably a week ago, there's some reporting on some of the Federal Reserve Bank heads that were trading, holding positions in some of the sectors and businesses that happen to benefit from all the COVID Fed policies. And, it's kind of a big deal. Chairman Powell said they're going to have an ethics review, but then again, he had some ties to some muni bonds apparently and some family trusts, which understandably, he can't really manage that. But at the same time, he did benefit from it. But what don't they benefit? So these guys are either you're not going to be able to have any kind of financial fund tied to you in any sense. But anyway, so they were supposed to liquidate, some of these head managers were going to liquidate their personal positions by September 30th, I think. So don't look for the market to really correct until after they get out of there. Just saying. But that's, they do this kind of stuff all the time. Granted, they're in a private entity anyway. They're not part of the federal government. The Federal Reserve is a private institution. They're these banks, so whatever. That's just par for the course, in my opinion. If you really want to look at corruption, why don't you just pull up the history of Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein and look at their trading activity, and some Republicans as well. But they're the two glaring examples of complete insider trading and contracts. And Biden has his own issues, but when you can look at stocks and whatnot, and then you got people like what's her face? They went to prison. The Miss Homebody, or what is her name? She does all the recipes, and you probably know what I'm talking about. But she, gets a tip on something, and she does time in the pen. And these guys gallivant around making millions of dollars, go to working at jobs that pay hundreds of thousands a year, or for congressmen, you're looking at close to a couple $100,000. Include some of the perks, you're well above there. But now that some of these people, multi-millionaires, tens of millionaires, and their family members are getting information and profiteering off it as well. So what else is new? And what is it? I'm not going to criticize the Fed over this, because that's inherently what they do is rig markets. That's their job in a sense. That's kind of their mandate at this point. So some of these guys had personal positions, and I don't agree with that. I don't think it's ethical, but the whole institution is not ethical. The whole institution is a giant scam. But anyway, so that goes on to some other stuff. So I was actually going to try to compile some data, because I have this assertion that we've actually been in more of a Great Depression era since probably 2008, maybe even before. We're always in this panic monetary policy. But if you actually use the real GDP deflator, I'd imagine we've had a lot of more negative GDP quarters than we believe have actually passed. But we'll see. I'll have to go in there and deep dive in some data. But there's been a number of reported GDP numbers are 2-something%. And you can, when you finagle with the CPI data and some of these other inflationary deals, inflationary measures, which they do, which I've shown you that offsets some of that GDP gain. And the way they calculate GDP, just to begin with, is kind of farcical. But where else there's a trade. So I came across this article, and it kind of illustrates, when a lot of people I've seen reporting, possible hot wars with China, where it goes into the milli thing. Some other commentators I've listened to talking about hot war with China, which I don't even think you have to, because the Chinese are fairly tactically measured in this. And why get in front of an enemy that's destroying themselves? You don't do that. Why start a hot war, or allow America to, or start a hot war with America in any sense, or even confront America militarily, when that would unite us? And once we're actually united and with a common enemy, we're a hell of force to fend off. But so you never get in the way of your enemy destroying himself, in a sense. But anyway, here's this guy. This is from Chris McIntosh. It's called The Most Terrifying Map in the World, and here's what it means to you. But I'll just go over what the map is, because if you want to, you look up this article. Then he published it on International Man. But anyway, it goes through. It shows you. And I wish I had the software just to pop this up, but right now I don't. I'm just starting this out pretty much, but I'll just go through it with you. And because there is some quantitative data, and there's like numbers here that I can tell you and give you a picture. But so it goes through. Year 2000 is a worldwide map, right? And the year 2020 worldwide map, and it's the percentage share of like the greatest trade partner that any of these countries have, and it's broken down into two trade partner countries, and that's whether you traded majority, you had a greater trading relationship with one of two countries, which would be the United States or China, right? So in 2000, the United States had 75% of the global total, being the predominant trading partner for all these X, Y, Z countries throughout the world, right? And China had 25% of that, and mainly around surrounding countries and in some African countries and a couple of Middle Eastern countries, right? But us predominantly, we dominate South America, of course, North America, most of Africa, all of Europe, and Russia and India, right, and Australia and all that. There were significant trading partners with us. If you take that chart, you go to 2020, and it's literally an inversion of that. Okay, so our main dominance in trade is in North America, in a few countries in Europe, but predominantly Africa is, it's a specifically Chinese monopoly there. South America, almost entirely Chinese. Russia, the entire Euro-Asia area, into India, Australia, predominantly strong ties to the Chinese. And those are productive trading, agreements or whatever that means. Our greatest asset right now that we pump out is US dollars. So I don't even know what we're actually trading with these other trade partners that we actually have, which is like Italy, France, and England, maybe like one of the Nordic countries up there, and then a couple of small countries in South America. I mean, it's dismal, man. You need trading partners. But to see that inversion there, so you can't finagle those numbers. I mean, you can't just print yourself into prosperity there. So this is a telling chart. It's a telling graphic of the current state of where America's, well, it's an empire now, where we're at in the late stage of an empire, and the rise of China. So like I said, China doesn't need to do anything besides let us destroy ourselves. And so they're going to build up a military, because you're always prepared for that. Because once you get a country in a corner, like if we're falling, what is one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to go to war. Which brings me, I was thinking about this today, which I'm going to go on. Why the hell, when we do these nation building campaigns, and I thought about this a long time ago, but it popped in my head with all this stuff. It's like, why do we go in and we put in parliamentary systems or dictatorships? Is like our form of government, the Republican form of government, not good enough? Why the hell don't we ever put in a government that's reflective of our own? It baffles. That has always baffled me. But sidebar. Anyway, let's get off of that. I'm on that all the time because there's some interesting stuff too. So I don't really care about going into COVID all that much at this point. I mean, if you want to, the best, if you can't, you're already in your camps. And I don't like appeal to authority arguments. If you can't go and do a little research on your own, do a little comparisons, learn how to read a scientific study, teach yourself about the human body, then I can't help you. We're past that point, and I can't do anything for you when it comes to critical thinking, or following the science, which is always not straightforward. And if science is never straightforward. It's competing ideas, and you come up with an assertion and people try to tear it down, and then if it faces that scrutiny and lasts, then we kind of go with that until somebody comes up with a better idea. But not now. It's just pushed on you. But if you want to really look into some of the policies that we've implemented, look at the difference between Israel and Sweden. They're diametrically opposed in the way they tackled this. And then you can look into other things. That's my COVID bit. But the one sidebar when it comes to COVID, and this is why I'm bringing this article up, is the second and third order effects. Not only with the way the country's run, your freedoms and the extent of what's going to happen later on in the country. But I'm talking, and not only the economic devastation that it's caused, but let's go into our own health. Like, ironically, our own policies towards COVID have other ramifications health-wise, and people brought this up psychologically. But here is one. This is from the CDC. This is reported by the Epoch Times. I've heard it pronounced otherwise, but I believe that's Epoch. It seemed like a decent publication. It's arisen during this time. But this Jack Phillips, CDC warns of alarming increase in childhood obesity during the pandemic, which I've seen a lot of fat kids regardless, but even more so now. And you want to talk about putting yourself at health risk, and this is it. Like, all my thinking with the vaccine is, like, if you have one of these cofactors, then you probably should get it, vaccinated. But if you're healthy or whatnot, but here you're letting your health in one sense deteriorate, which makes you more susceptible not only to a COVID-like disease, but other health complications down the road. And you're doing this to your kids. This is to me, this is child abuse. But we're looking at they measured in pound increase. You can go read the article yourself, but you're talking about 10, 20 or 20-fold. In some states, you're talking about the average state. They measure BMI increases. Some of them doubled compared to the pandemic period. But they looked at 2 to 19. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. We're already at that stage before the pandemic, where you had in my opinion, epidemic of childhood obesity, and that now it's increasing, and you can understand because of lockdowns, but that's due to parents. And I don't blame the kids in this arena. This is parents, 100%. This is their responsibility, and their doing. And if they don't have the wherewithal to do a little research on themselves or to do the right thing, I don't know what to tell you. We're in a vastly different state if you're just waiting for the government to tell you what to do. But here's, CDC. The CDC noted that as schools and other venues reopen, supporting the kids and families are given ample opportunities for proper nutrition and regular physical activity, which I've seen. Dude, you go into a Walmart and you see the kind of crap that people are giving their kids. Every kid has a freaking tablet that they're glued to. I mean, I have a daughter, and she has a tablet. She's on that, but I pop that away from her. We go outside. We go do things. We do workbooks. We do play basketball, activities. And to be honest, I don't have to worry about her. Her eating habits are pretty good, really. And genetically, we're not prone to being overweight. But we also stay physically active because genetics can only get you so far. You can go eat like crap and become obese. But accelerated weight gain, especially among children with overweight or among children with overweight or obesity, can cause long-lasting metabolic changes and put children at risk of serious and costly co-occurring conditions such as type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and depression. CDC report also said, which if you look at some of the cofactors with COVID, at least 2 of those 3 are cofactors with deaths. Now, I'm not saying kids are among the least at risk when it comes to COVID, but when you start putting other cofactors in there, their risk factors go up when it comes to COVID related stuff, or just anything. I'm worried about, like, down the road, not just COVID. I'm worried about whatever cancers, other developmental issues when you get older. But you look at the number of states. I mean, it's incredible. Anyway, look at that. That's craziness. That in itself, we can do something about. These things like this, we can do something about. We can mitigate things like this, risk factors like this. I'm not saying we're at this stage at certain aspects of society where we're trying to minimize risk to zero, which is never. There's a good saying. It's like on a long enough time scale, survival rate of every goes down to zero. But so there's always going to be risk in a sense. That's what I mean. But in these things, it's a simple modification. And not only does it lower risk of all these other elements and devastating effects in your life, but it also helps you live a better life. It gives you the ability to do other things that are great, or to make those decisions. I'm not saying I don't want people to be restricted in what they eat, but I want people to be educated and be able to make decisions Now imagine if the government came out and they started encouraging people to go outside and exercise, eat right during this whole thing. Who knows? We could have turned this in the opposite direction, but no, we didn't. We allowed you to go congregate in Walmart, go eat unhealthy, sit around. We encourage you to sit around on your ass, on your couch, and consume Netflix and whatnot, all to detriment of our own society. In the end, whew, man, it's always depressing. The whole thing's depressing when you read all this stuff. There's no really good news, because even the good articles, you sit there and you look at it and you're like, oh my God, what are they doing? What are they doing? Because they're not good. Because we're in a real desperate time in America. And I'm going to go into this subtopic later in a different video. We're talking about, because California is pretty much gone, Illinois, New York, and there's a mass exodus of people. And where do you go? So if you're in one of these states, or even if you're in some other states that are not, like, where do you go? Well, a lot of people, like I said, where I'm from, we call them COVID refugees. They're in there. They're driving up housing prices. They're causing havoc, whatever, politically, culturally, in these areas. And these places that they're running to are traditionally, like I said, before Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, Idaho, traditionally good places if you want to get away from people. It's not that case anymore. You can't buy cheap land there. But if you're trying to get away and detach yourself and become more independent, those aren't the places anymore. I wish they were, because I love those places. I love the cold. Good hard freeze is good, and a lot of people don't like the cold. We're going to see a lot of these people have to go through their first winter, their first real winter here, hopefully soon, and we'll see how they last. But if you are looking for a sustainable way to get away from a lot of this and be in a good state, those states are still up there, but there's better states now because of the whole influx of people that have gone in there. There's better states. And when you go to these places, here's one thing on the top list. So if you're making a list of where you need to go, one of the things is water, right? These states aren't very good with the whole water issue. There's gonna be a realization on that too. So when I look at this stuff, like I said, or I haven't said this before, but we're gonna go through it eventually. I'm kind of preparing something. The Midwest is a good place. You won't find me there, but I mean, I guess I do have a small apartment in Missouri, but I don't like. I mean, I'm from the West. That's where I grew up. I don't want to move. I want to go back, and live my life there, even and fight for my state. That's what I'll do, is I'll fight for that state, even though there's all these new people and they're trying to change things. I will do that because I'm not going to be like the Californians in the past that have left. But anyway, if you're going to go to these, out and you're looking for good land deals with good water, with good availability of where grass is, and the propensity to be able to grow throughout a vast season, have livestock or whatnot, you need to look at elsewhere. Texas is still good, but that's on the same end. But Texas is so big, so you can get away from that. But you need to look at like East Texas. Of course, Austin, you don't want to go there anymore. But Arkansas, Missouri, West Virginia, places in Alabama is a good place, because what Alabama does have too, as I've looked at it, is their land rights for building and stuff is exceptional among a lot of other states. Florida's not so good, even though politically they're a good state. But when it comes to like getting your own little homestead and putting things together, and these are my opinions. I'm developing a list we'll go over good places to get out of to get a reasonable amount of land for a reasonable price, and having productive land. So if you get 40 acres, let's say in eastern Oklahoma, and you get 40 acres in like a Colorado or Arizona, northern Arizona, let's say, because you can get pretty decent land or decent deals on land in northern Arizona. But 40 acres in northern Arizona is a hell of a lot different than 40 acres in eastern Oklahoma, and a lot of that has to do with water. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I'll talk to you later. Peace.